Diana, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous. I don't know what was going on with the camera there
Yeah, no worries. I'm
because
so glad that.
it's a built-in camera.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just want to thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast episode. So, for those of you who are listening, I am really excited about this episode. I am going to be talking with one of the founding board members for the Alliance of Technology for Women, and it's based out of Dallas, Fort Worth. And I can't wait for you guys to tune in and listen to us. So, jumping right in, Diana, thank you so much for joining me. I met you in Dallas a couple of weeks ago for the InnoTech Summit. And I would like to know, our listeners would like to know, can you tell us a little bit more about what the ATW stands for and what it's all about?
Right. Well, DFW ATW is an educational nonprofit, and we're committed to increasing the number of women in leadership and strengthening the pipeline of girls entering the technology or STEM fields. And so that's really, in a nutshell, what we're all about.
That's great. So you guys were a part of InnoTech Summit. You guys, what was y'all's main part at InnoTech?
So typically at InnoTech, we own and we drive the Women in Technology Summit. That, it's one of the parallel conferences that run during the entire day. And we had a series of panels and speakers, from the beginning to the end of the conference. And, just a lot of fabulous people from the community that participated that day. So we were really, really happy with the results.
So you are one of the founding board members. Tell me, what has been one of the most rewarding parts of starting this organization?
I think it's really the impact we've had in the community. What we've done from day one with the Great Minds program with the middle school girls, to really inspire and to create the awareness, that technology is for them. Regardless of where they're coming from, regardless of their economic situation or their demographic, there is a place for you in technology.
That's very true. There is a place for us. We are much needed in this industry. How long have you been in this industry? Are you originally from this industry, or how did your journey lead you here?
I am. It's funny. I started out as a forensic chemistry major, and halfway through my freshman year in college, I became interested in computer science and discovered I liked that even better. And so, since the moment I got out of college, I've been working with not only some of the largest engineering firms in the US, but I've also been extremely fortunate to work with a variety of startups and boutique consulting companies and, several different disciplines and domains like, telecommunication, logistics, defense, and, of course, telecom.
Logistic defense. Okay. I'm going to pick your brain about this. Logistic defense. I know, because I'm in technology as well, that Tech for Good is a big part of the work that we also do for women in tech. And just being a woman in tech, I think that technology for good is important. We don't really know what artificial intelligence can lead us into. It can be a big black box, and it could also mean that technology is used for warfare, and it can be used in a bad way. So can you tell us a little bit more of your thoughts and where you worked at in that area?
Right. So, like I said, I've been very fortunate to work with some of the biggest telecom houses, and like you, I had some questions early on. And the way it was explained to me, and the way I look at it, defense is about making sure that your community and your country have a role, and that they're positioned to really take their community and values forward. So it's not so much as that you're waging warfare on people, but that you're taking care, and you're ensuring that the future of your community and in your country. And when you look at defense that way, it makes a lot of sense. The other thing too to know is I've done several programs under the auspices of DARPA or ARPA, depending on who's in, the office at the given time, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And they, throughout the history of the U.S., have funded some of the business technological innovations in the U.S. Everything from the Apollo missions in NASA to robotics and artificial intelligence to quantum mechanics and quantum computing that we see. And they actually funded, believe it or not, they actually really did fund the development of the internet here in the US. So they provided some of the various early funding and thought leadership in that area, and made a lot of what we take for granted today possible. So there are some really good things that those programs have really done for the US.
So I know at InnoTech and at Women in Tech, they did talk a little bit about from the 1990s, the first people who were on the web and developing this. Tell me, where were you in that time from when the web first began to now, where we're heading into? What has been some challenges in this whole tech ecosystem, and of the web and of technology?
Right. So I was fortunate to see it from our earliest days. And back when I started the web, and it was not a web, there was no such thing as a network. It was point to point telephone lines. And we were one of two in Dallas, if you can believe it, at Texas Instruments. And we had a telephone line between Dallas and UT Dallas, right? And as I recall, it was like a 9600 baud modem. So it wasn't even anything approaching a T1. It was a dial-up connection. And that was pretty much it. That was state of the art. So I've had a chance to see everything from, the landlines, hard physical connections, to token ring, to the first coax cables that went into all the businesses. And then we started seeing wireless come in. And I actually was fortunate enough to be on the ground floor of some of the broadband wireless networks that are out there. So it's been very interesting to see the rise of the network. And you talk about the challenges. I don't think anybody had an idea about the explosive growth we were going to see. And early on, it was developed pretty much without a lot of guardrails, right? It's just mostly, universities and some key research institutes and concerns like Texas Instruments. And very few people outside of corporate labs had anything to do with it. And all of a sudden you saw, the rise of commerce. It went from, a way for businesses to communicate, a way for business to collaborate, to now we're doing commerce. And now we have individuals on the web. And now everybody's using it to do whatever it is that they want to do today. Everything from running their business to education to, as we saw last year, everybody's been running, the universities across the web as well. So you can get a world-class education now on the web. So I don't think anybody had the foggiest idea it was really possible. And then you see the rise of everything, edge computing and 5G networks and IoT devices. And of course, you end up with all these huge security concerns and privacy concerns that come along with it. So, it's really, it's taken a life of its own. And I don't think anybody knew exactly where we were headed. I think they would be lying if they said, oh yeah, I knew all this was going to happen. I don't think anybody had the foggiest idea.
No, I don't think nobody knew that the pandemic was going to affect us so much. And not only our businesses and the way that we conduct business, and especially for e-commerce, everything moving online, and how important it was going to be to someone's business when you had to shut your business down and you couldn't operate in person. I want to ask you, from that time, what did you notice was a difference also too in communication, how people were beginning to communicate a lot more differently and more through social media, through the computer, just like we're doing right now, having this live conversation, and it's streaming to different platforms on social media, and anyone can access it, to watch it, to see it. So how has communication also played a part into everything that technology is doing?
Well, my view for the longest time is telecom actually leads the way. Wherever the telecom industry goes, the rest of the industry goes. And some of the most powerful computers that we've ever come up with, and a lot of the languages as well, that everything is written in, were actually developed by and for the telecommunications industry. Because they needed to improve the bandwidth, they needed to improve the speed, they needed to improve their switches. And so they kind of lead the way to a large extent for the rest of the tech space. And then you see people thinking, well, how can I use that whole, communication grid and make it endemic part of my business? And I think people had a little bit of idea recently, and then the last couple of years have really shown us what's possible. That, we've gone from having really expensive, brief telephone calls, on landlines, to, as we're doing now, conversations across the web in real time with excellent video and audio. And, eventually we're going to all feel like we're in the same room. We're going to think we're in the same room, regardless of where we are. And so, the collaboration and the possibilities, I think, are really endless. And it's really just up to our imagination. I think anything we can conceive of, we can do. But, so it's going to be interesting to see where some of this goes over the next few years. I don't think we're done yet by any stretch.
No, and I also have noticed, I've been to several women empowerment events where they bring down the screen and someone is speaking and talking, how that's so much more normal now than before. We never saw that. You never saw someone speaking to us on a screen, and virtual and real life playing at the same time. That's something that has changed, as well as we're coming back from the pandemic and we're transitioning from that. Have you noticed anything like this in Dallas going on? Have you? How do you believe that it's going to keep on continuing or change? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh no, I think that's going to be more and more prevalent. We would have pre-recorded some things maybe in the past and shown a video clip. And I would say stay tuned for the executive leadership forum, because we're going to have another great example of just this, a virtual platform in action, with people all over from the US joining in and participating in real time, including one of our, main headline speakers. And it's going to be really, really interesting.
That sounds amazing. When is this going to be?
This is going to be in October.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask you. Okay, so I know about your passion, and I know about the groundwork that you've done and you've put in with ATW, and I know now you're venturing off and you're starting your own company. Can you tell me a little bit more about your company and what is the mission of your company?
Sure. I'm in the process of launching my consulting and coaching business called Tech Luminous Women. Now, let me tell you just a little bit about why I decided to go this direction. About 15 years into my career, just before the birth of my youngest child, I seriously considered dropping out of tech and pursuing another career. Like a lot of women at that age and stage, I felt frustrated, ignored, unfulfilled, and completely stressed out. And I was one of those, on paper, I had it all. I had a good position at a well-respected company, a wonderful husband who was a terrific father, 3 fantastic kids, a nice house, money in the bank. I mean, I was one of those, you name it, I had it, right? But I felt like there was something seriously wrong, really, really wrong. And I was ready to push that eject button on the career I built so hard to pursue, build and pursue and go for something, anything else. And I'm not the only one. We hear this story over and over about women in the STEM fields. Many change or drop out of the tech workforce in the mid 30s. And during the last 18 to 24 months, COVID has really had a disproportionate effect on women in the workforce. And this is particularly true for mothers with children under 10 years old. And that was widely reported in the McKinsey and Company article in 2020. But the reason that I'm here today talking with you is that, unlike a lot of women in their mid 30s, I was able to drag myself back from the brink of that cliff, right? I didn't push the eject button and leave the tech industry. And, 20 some odd years later, I'm still in the industry and thriving. And like I said, I've worked for, many different kinds of companies, some of the biggest engineering houses in the US, startups and consulting companies, and a lot of different domains and industries. And what I'm really looking to do is to address the dropout rate of women in the STEM fields. It's one thing to get them into STEM. It's something else, again, to keep them in there. And I think women bring something very special to the STEM fields. I think we bring a very different perspective. We bring a lot of compassion and empathy, and we bring our communities with us. And I think you see that again with ATW. And, another, I love it. It's, McKinsey is one of the powerhouses when it comes to all these research and then reporting out to the community. But, they recognize from the research that women bring a very different perspective, a different point of view. And by including women and having a diverse workforce, you consistently produce better solutions and outcomes. And their article, where you can read more about this, is called Diversity Wins, How Inclusion Matters. And, for me and my position and where I, had a chance to look, back in 2002 when we launched ATW, and even today, I think it's especially critical for technical innovation, for the future and for our families and our communities. It's really, I don't think I can stress how critical it is to our future to have women in the technical communities. We're 50% of the population. But it's really interesting. A lot of people outside of the tech space have a very different perspective from the people within, right? So if you're a woman within the tech space, you're more likely to think that this is for you. And the longer you're in it, hopefully you'll think that it's more and more of a place for you. But a lot of those outside the tech community have a very different perspective. And they think that many of the professions, particularly if you're talking math and physics, it's men, that it's all about men. And it's really interesting if you delve into some of the research that some of the words you use to describe the particular characteristics of the different field may have some very masculine connotations that go with them. And it differs even across field to field, whether we're talking chemistry or biology or computer science or like I said, math or physics or even architecture. So I think it's really interesting that the different fields have different characteristics or perceptions that go with them. And I think, the only way to change that perception is to get in there and do something about it, to be part of the change, right?
Yeah, definitely changing the different perceptions that women might have about technology, and the way that men are seen as, more in math and seen in as the more technical person, and just the whole bias that girls cannot be good at math or any of those biases that we have against women, because we don't feel like they're able or capable to do the job when they are. Like you just said, we have proof. There's, McKinsey that says, and there's much more statistics out there that prove how beneficial it can be to have a woman in your organization, that's in tech.
Right. And I'd really like to see some of the disparity in, the percentages really change, because we're half of the population, we should have half of the seats at the table. But yeah, it's really interesting. People develop a perception from their earliest ages. So it's kind of frightening, thinking we can wait to address it, and even middle school, it's late. But some of the reasons, I think those of us who are in it, and we hear this a lot, but it's actually turning out to be very, very true. You need a role model. You need somebody that looks like you, sounds like you, walks and talks like you. And I think one of the reasons that I got into the sciences and to tech is because the earliest examples that I had in high school, 3 years out of 4, my science teacher was a woman. It was actually the same woman. And 2 out of the 4 years I was at high school, my math teacher was also a woman. So I had some really good examples in front of me every day of the week that women were in it. They were doing very well in it. They were well respected. And, so it never even occurred to me that it wouldn't be for me or possible for me. And, and to hear that others, feel from the earliest age, well, that's for someone else or someone who's different. That really hurts. That really, really hurts. And I think it hurts society as a whole. So, I think it's really incumbent on those of us who are in tech to do what we can to be those role models, get engaged with the organizations, our community, do the mentoring, do the tutoring, partner with people like ATW and other nonprofits, other institutions to really address that, because, that little bit about, well, everybody needs a role model. It's actually very, very true. And I think we don't realize, the extent that is accurate.
Yeah, it's very true. I know for me, I started a project called Pretty Smart, and that we are the S and the T in STEM. So the science and the technology part, for after school programming for girls. We have a cosmetic chemistry club, and then we have a cosmetic chemistry and technology club where we're teaching girls about artificial intelligence. I know that the statistics show for Latina women we're only 2%. So the percentage of the pool goes down. So that's really important to me to bring awareness and to talk about that, and to show, have more girls experience those experiences that they probably could have never had, or maybe in their household or in their homes, they were not encouraged to pursue this for whatever reason. So I really feel like it's important as well for me, just as much as it is for you. And I know that, it's been really awesome meeting you. I'm really glad that I ended up going to Tech, and I was really glad that I drove all the way from Houston and got there to just attend. And that's the power of organizations like ATW and the project that, I'm working with Pretty Smart, to bring those communities together, so that we can bring that change, and really, the alliances, especially at ATW, was awesome. Just meeting different women from different backgrounds, hearing their stories. That was really major as well. I really enjoyed all of that. I also too wanted to ask you, what has been one of the most memorable parts of your whole journey as a woman in tech?
Oh, so this, let me see. That there was one that I thought was really good. And when I was a senior in college, and they brought us all in a room, all the graduating seniors, and they asked us, what did we think it was we were looking for in a job? What did we want to try and do? And they cautioned us that we were probably going to have to move because I went to school up in Ohio, Ohio State, right? And we were in a huge economic downturn at that point, not unlike what we're going through now. Of course, this one is like 10 times as bad, I think. But, they said, if you want a job in the field that you've been, working in at the university level for the last 4 years, you're going to have to reconcile. You're going to have to move out of the state. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll kind of figure that based on who we saw coming to recruit. Everybody's from out of state. And, but they asked us what it was you wanted to do. And for some weird reason, I had this thought in the back of my head, and I said, I want to be a computer scientist. I want to do something that's going to be fundamental to what we're doing in the world of computer science. And they actually laughed at me and they said, oh, honey, that's just not possible. You're going to have to get a master's and a PhD, and you're going to be very, very lucky to do anything. Well, like they say, right place, right time, right preparation. I ended up in the corporate labs out at Texas Instruments. I had exactly the right skill set. I was in exactly the right place. And I tell people, so I was the youngest, most inexperienced research assistant that you could possibly imagine very early on in my career. And I ended up with a couple of patents out of it. I ended up with some amazing skills and knowledge coming out of it because I was able to fundamentally, work with people who were contributing directly to, some of the communications technology that we see in use today, some of the underpinnings, the things that people don't know is even there, and to distributed computing, from its very earliest days. And I tell people, it's like, you just have no idea where some of the decisions or some of the things you say in life are going to pop up or where they're going to take you. And so I tell people, it's like, you can't be afraid to dream big. You can't be afraid to say what you really want. And I think if I have any regrets, it's that I didn't think harder about that. I didn't really think about what is it that I really want out of my career, not just the pro forma thing that everybody thinks they have to put on the review. You really need to sit down and think about it hard, because the more you say it, the more chances are it's going to become a reality. And if anybody had told me that I would work not only for Texas Instruments, but would be a road warrior for IBM as a consultant, and worked at Raytheon Systems, and then worked for some small businesses, run a couple of different companies, I would have never believed it. So, like I said, anything is possible, but you have to tell people what it is you want for it to become reality. Because if it's kind of like keeping your light under a basket. If you hide your light, no one else can see it. So I really encourage everybody to shine the light on what it is you really want to do, and shine that light on your community.
Absolutely. Yes, agree 100% with you. I know for me, I have been on a journey for tech, a most unusual journey for me. I went to makeup art school, And I opened a makeup academy. I created my own website, designed it. That was my first introduction to technology. From there, made over $60,000 in 8 months on social media through makeup. Closed that business down in Amarillo, Texas. Moved to Houston. Thought I was going to do that out here, and I ended up instead opening up a digital agency. And during the pandemic, I was out here. That affected my business. So started a podcast. From this podcast, it has created it into a magazine, a Women in magazine. And my journey has not ended yet. My media company, our mission is to change the narrative for women in tech, because it's very much needed. It's very much something that I believe isn't out there. You look at many technology magazines, and they're all very geared towards men, and which is a great thing. However, we need to touch on subjects of women in tech, about us not having enough representation, us not being able to have a seat at the table, what it feels like to have imposter syndrome, because some of us don't come from backgrounds that are very supportive. Many of us have had challenges that we'd have to rise out of to be where we are. And sometimes we don't feel like we belong. So there's so many things that a woman, I want to contribute to the woman in tech through my magazine. And that has been my journey.
No, I was going to say your own story is also very aspiring, to hear, the different paths that you've already taken at this point in time is really, really interesting. And I think it really illustrates and underlines that technology is in everything. Yeah, I don't think people realize how much technology has become a part of any kind of business you have, whether it's cosmetics or advertising. I know certainly everybody recognizes that with social and digital media, but I mean, it's just shocking how much it's, become a part of every facet of our lives. So, and, like we were saying before, women are 50% of the population. And we make well over half of the purchasing decisions, including all the major purchasing decisions, cars, everything else, and our homes. The guys only think, they make a decision. We've already pre-selected the 3 or 5 things we're willing to buy. And we say, okay, you can help me pick the final 3, right? But I know whatever it is, I'm going to want it because I've already decided these are the 3 I want. But, so it's really, really important for us to be the people that are not only buying it, but also designing and making it and have the wherewithal to buy it. Because you sound like somebody else who was brought up the way I was, not to expect that anybody else is going to be supporting you. And, Cinderella is a fairy tale, right? There is no Prince Charming on a white horse that's coming to save you and take you away from, whatever your current situation is. And that we're all responsible for ourselves. And we're the only one who can, do what we need to do for ourselves. And like, I think you and I both said, we're convinced that, technology is really for us, and that we've got a very special and different perspective that we bring to the party. And I think it's becoming even more and more critical as everyone is talking about. And I think you talked about this earlier too. We have all these ethical questions that are really, really starting to rise as we see, AI and machine learning. And we discover there's all this bias built into a lot of it. And the reason it's because of that is because women haven't been involved in it. And so once again, the way to address it is you have to be involved. You have to be engaged. Otherwise, it's not going to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like women definitely are driving the change in that. I know one woman in general who is very much at the forefront of the bias in tech, virtual reality. She's made major headways, and just in general, how the algorithms are made by men. And this definitely affects women in many ways. And it's not favoring us. If anything, it's hindering us and it's hurting us in many ways, in many aspects.
Well, and it's not just the algorithms, it comes once again down to the data. What are you using as the data to create your models? If you're using data that doesn't include women or doesn't include, diverse community, then your data has a bias you may not realize, so it's once again unintentional bias. And for good or bad, we're all human and we bring whatever biases we have to our work, which is why, once again, it's really important to have diversity at the table, because then you can deal with that bias. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out. Same old. Whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So you've got to have the right ingredients going into the front of everything to get the right products coming out.
Absolutely. And that's why I love these discussions. I love having these discussions with other women about this, so that we can continue the talks, continue the narrative, continue the dialogue with other women, to voice their opinion, to make those voices made. I know at WIT with ATW, many women voiced their opinions on this and also shared about this as well. What have you seen as being a consultant? What is being done right now in technology companies for driving more women to the table?
So there's a really big push going on right now. So I think the pendulum has definitely swung our way again for a while, that there's a big push that, particularly, even morality and doing the right thing aside, when you just look at the sheer economics of thing, you have to recognize that the companies that do better are more diverse, they're more inclusive, they're more expansive, they have more expansive thinking, they have better, more well-rounded solutions. And so it's really problematic if you aren't seeking that diversity in your workforce. But it's not enough just to hire it. You really have to foster it. You really have to support it once you get those people in. So you have to create the culture and you have to create the environment within. So it's not just hiring, it's everything else that you wrap around it. And it's not just the training, but how you show up and you put it into play every single day. And that's what I think the conversation has changed a bit. And we saw this years ago about quality. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk, right? Well, it's the same thing when it comes to diversity. You can't just talk about it on the front end and then not put anything to practice or put anything to action. So you really have to do something every single day. And I know in my own business, one of the things I think about or try to think about every day is, what is the best thing I can do to make this happen for my community? What's the biggest thing that's going to move the needle? So I think in terms of diversity, it's the same thing when we look at our businesses, or what can I do to create that more inclusive environment? Not someplace that somebody will just want to join, but they'll actually want to stay and grow and contribute throughout their career. Because it's a whole lot less expensive to keep people on our teams than it is to hire new ones, right? So once we get somebody who shares our values, I think we need to do everything we can to keep them with us and help us grow and help us, realize their full potential. So I think that's the biggest difference I see. It's not just doing it on the front end, calling it done, or once a year training and calling it done, but that we have to live it and talk it every day of the week in everything we do.
Yes, this is very true. So tell me, what can we expect from your company coming up? What is it that we should be looking out for? Share any, anything, any details, any information, so that we can be on the lookout and we can expect what's going to be coming from your company.
Okay, well, thanks. So the first workshop is currently a work in progress, and it's really going to be dealing with essential leadership secrets that's going to power your passion as a woman in tech. So it's really trying to get back to the heart and understanding of, for those of us that are still here, still thriving after, a long career, what moved the needle for us, what really made the difference, how or what did we do to pull ourselves back from the brink, of that cliff where we wanted to punch that eject button halfway through the career. So there's that piece. And I also decided, everybody wants to write books, but I think some of the books I'm going to write are going to be very different. They're going to be completely unexpected. And they're not going to be, some of the standard fare that people have been seeing over the last little bit. So stay tuned. And uh,
Yeah, we'll have to bring you back whenever you do launch those books so we can keep a follow up and we can continue to learn and hear more about it as you come out and launch these books.
Oh, thank you. And I should mention too, so a co-collaborator of mine, Linda Self, and I, we're putting together our own podcast. And we said, we don't women just talk about their story. We want to talk about how women are knocking it down and delivering on it every single day in tech. You just don't know about them, right? Because women are doing fabulous things every single day of the week. And we, like you, we really, really want to showcase that and provide those examples that everybody needs, because they all need examples, and they all need to know that there's a community out there for them. That's become one of the biggest visible needs over the past 2 years is people need a community where they feel like they belong and connect. And so that's like you, again, that's one of the pieces that we hope to be able to provide.
Awesome. When can we expect that podcast?
So we're going to be recording between now and the beginning of the year, and I would expect to see our inaugural podcast in January.
Okay. Is this going to be separate from your books, separate from your business?
Separate from the books. It's going to be a co-collaboration, but we think it's a really great way, like we're doing here, to have, really great, intimate conversations, because we love, we're all better together. We love having conversations and having a chat. And so we're going to have some chats with some amazing women.
That's great. You're definitely going to have to loop us back in. We're going to have to bring you back in. You can talk about your podcast. You can talk about your new books that you're going to be launching. That sounds very, very interesting, and I'm just excited to hear about it. It's going to be something that's not expected. I'm always eager, and just knowing women like you and I who really will, push the limits and really want to create that dialogue for other women in tech and be that voice. I can just imagine what you're going to bring and what it's going to be like. And I know it's going to be good. So
thank you.
You're welcome. I want to thank you so much for joining me today on today's episode. I want to let everyone know, where can they find you, Diana? Where can they connect with you? And again, let them know about ATW's website and where they can find that as well.
Right. So, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Diana Sparacin. I'm based out of the greater Dallas area. There's a couple other Dianas and a couple other Sparacins, but I'm the only one in Dallas as far as I know. And the website for ATW is dfwatw.org. And again, we have a wonderful executive leadership forum event coming up this month. And it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I was just double checking. It's on the 27th. I had to make sure I was looking at the right date, because we just, this last month was, September 27th, and then October 27th, and so they kind of run together just a little bit there. But
have to make an extra trip to Dallas just so I can go again. Anything to go to Dallas, I'll go.
Oh yeah. Now I should mention that one is going to be virtual.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, which is nice, because that means you can come from anywhere and everywhere. It's not just limited to people in Dallas. And we have a surprise guest speaker. And the book that you saw at the conference, My Life in Full, from Indra Nuyi, is she is one of our headline speakers. So it's really a can't miss event. And if that weren't good enough, if you join ATW at the same time, you're going to get a discount.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More reasons to come.
Yeah, definitely. More reasons to come to Dallas. I may not be from Dallas, but I can just say I'm here.
You're part of Texas, same thing, right?
Exactly. That's how all Texas people feel. As long as you're from Texas, you can go to every city.
We're good. Right.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Diana, for joining me on today's episode. Guys, you heard it here on the Fit Beaute Report. You can connect with Diana on LinkedIn, DFW, join them this October for their forum. And thanks so much, guys, for tuning in to today's episode and lending me your ears. I hope you gained a lot of value from today's episode. Peace and love.